Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. My name is Jason Miller. I lead global content marketing for LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. This is called Creating Your First Big Rock Piece of Content, a step-by-step guide for creating marquee content. The hashtag today is #BigRockContent, so please tweet along if you see anything interesting. This is the first time that I presented this live, so bear with me. Hopefully this will go well. This has been kind of a passion project for me from my time at Marketo all the way to LinkedIn, because I get the question all the time. Number one, how do I create not more content but more relevant content and really deliver a home run? And the second part is, how do I start, what's the first big rock? How do I create this? And basically I'm going to walk through the exact blueprint that I used at Marketo, that I still use at LinkedIn, that we found tremendous success with on both the teams I've been working with. So this is the secrets, man. I'm going to lift the veil and get behind this. And again, if you know anything about me, then you know that I have a love for heavy metal. And if you can guess what album cover this design was inspired by, it's a combination of an album cover and a movie. The movie is Excalibur, because I wanted to empower marketers to kind of pull out Excalibur, the sword, and kind of electrify their content marketing strategy, if you will. So with that being said, let's start with the why. And I'll tell you what, this is a little bit frightening for me in 2015 to see this stat from the B2B Content Marketing Trends Report from our good friends Joe Polizzi at the Content Marketing Institute and Marketing Pros. So 33% of marketers feel their organizations are effective when it comes to content marketing. 33%, this thing should be 100%, right? And I think the problem really stems in the fact that we are creating too much content. We're not getting enough of the value out of the content we do create. We're moving on way too quickly. I'll talk about that in a second. But again, as a content marketer, your job is very easy. You just have to answer the most important questions, the burning questions on your customers' and prospects' minds, and then be the best answer. Just as the search engine's job is to deliver the most relevant answer to the questions that's typed into a search query, right? Your job as a content marketer is to be that best answer and optimized to be found. And then, of course, put some pay behind it, inbound plus outbound. But again, we should all be measuring our content, and we should all be able to create content that resonates. If it, as Hugh McLeod famously says in his book, Ignore Everybody, should I create this damn piece of content or not? We're going to answer that question for you today. A couple more setup stats here, just kind of the state of the industry where we're at today. During 2013 and 2014, the volume of content per over 8,000 brands studied increased by 78%. That's an astounding number. So what does that say? It says we're all doing more content, but again, we're effectively measuring this or getting the most value out of it, which is frightening. So again, the answer here is not more content, but more relevant content. That's exactly what I'm going to show you today. Over the same time frame, the engagement produced by that content decreased by 60%. Who's creating this stuff that has a 60% less engagement? I would not even go down that road of creating that content. If the content is not getting engaged with, then maybe you shouldn't have created it in the first place. And how do you know that? But how do you know that? Well, with big data, there's no question whether you should create a piece of content, right? And I'm going to talk about that. Is there conversation out there happening around the topic? Are there questions? Is data pointing to the fact that this is the conversation that you need to take a hold of or take control of? And can you make an impact in this conversation if it's already happening? How quickly, right? That's all going to be talked about today. And even more frightening, SiriusDecisions. I was just at SiriusDecisions a couple of months ago, my first time there. SiriusDecisions estimates that 60 to 70% of B2B content goes unused. Who in the hell produces a piece of content that doesn't get used, right? Are we producing content just to produce content? As Jesse Noyes from Kapos says, random acts of content, right? That's what he calls it. That does not work. Every piece of content we create here at LinkedIn has a purpose, has a mission, has a goal. It's helping someone. It's answering a question, right? This is mind-boggling that close to 70% of content goes unused, right? And then finally, 70% of B2B marketers produce more content in 2014 than in the previous year. That just is a key indicator that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But we can all solve this problem. We can all get together as marketers for the greater good of marketing mankind and produce a big rock. So this comes from one of my favorite content marketers on the planet, Mr. Doug Kessler. He's the co-founder and creative director at Velocity Partners in the UK. And Doug, I love this quote. This is why I open up with it. Doug famously says, The first step any company wanting to start with content marketing or improve is to aim for one home run piece, one great piece, one thing that is the definitive take on an issue, right? At Marketo, we created the definitive guide to whatever the hell conversation we wanted to own at the time. When I came over to LinkedIn, I took the same strategy, the same formula. This works, this is scalable, and I said, let's use the same formula, but I wanted to create a new series. So we launched the Sophisticated Marketers series, which we'll talk about a little bit, but this is more about this piece actually, and breaking it down, how we actually launched a big rock on big rocks. I'm going like Inception, like Leo DiCaprio, like 2 levels down here for you folks. But again, one home run, right? If you start with content marketing, or if you're having trouble with content marketing, having trouble selling it into your C-suites, you got to have something to sell them. You got to have a story. You got to have one home run. So this is if you follow this exactly, I promise you this will be your home run. And then I'm going to talk about how we leverage the LinkedIn ecosystem to promote this, right? Through brand touch points with your company page, your showcase pages. That's the mothership. That's where you launch your content. This is where you promote this is where you talk about the updates and share thought leadership and share your content, connect with your customers and prospects, right? And then the content. This is how we promote content on LinkedIn through company updates, both sponsored and organic. Again, if you're only doing organic, I think you're missing a huge opportunity here. We'll talk about that. Individual updates, having your employees share content. Your best advocates are your employees. People always say, nobody's sharing my content. If you can't say I'm playing the world's smallest violin for you, right? That's no excuse. Go with your advocates. If your employees are happy and they want to talk about their brand, they want to celebrate the company they work for, then you need to empower them to share your content, right? And then individual posts, publishing on LinkedIn. It's open to everyone now. It's a great way to share and write about your big rock content, and write about your thoughts on pretty much anything, marketing, helpful, inspiring, whatever. But if you have something to say, you should be writing about it on LinkedIn. It's attached to your online identity, your professional profile. This is very important, right? And then, of course, distribution of all this content through the feed, through mobile, through the desktop, through tablets, right? Having this optimized experience through all three. Over 75% of the engagement through LinkedIn, through our sponsored updates, comes through mobile. So it's important that you have this very good experience across all 3 screens, meaning responsive design, but also with your content. So LinkedIn is already responsive across these 3 screens, and it's a very similar experience. It's a good experience, so it's important to take advantage of that. So here we go. This is breaking it down, the 8 steps. Step 1, finding the right conversation to own, right? As a content marketer, you should, again, as I mentioned before, your job is to be that best answer to a burning question. But how do you know what that question is? How do you know where to find that question? How do you know what topic you need to start off with your big rock? This is your home run, man. You got one shot. This is like Over the Top or something with Sylvester Stallone, if anyone remembers that movie. People say start with personas. I don't agree. I say you start with easy keyword research, right? Or keyword research. There's a couple ways you can do this. Now, if you have budget, I would highly recommend you hire someone like, Moz.com, or use their platform, or hire somebody like TopRank, who we use. But again, analyzing the conversation to find out what topics are being talked about, what topics are being searched on, what keyword queries you can actually make a dent on based on competitiveness, right? So this is very important. Now, if you want to dive in quick and dirty, you can use a couple of different tools here. So this is called Ubersuggest. This is really interesting because Google took away all our ability to look at keywords that are being searched for our sites, right, and driving traffic to our sites. But what Ubersuggest does is it basically scrapes the Google autofill from queries that are typed in and pulls them together for you. So when I came to LinkedIn, the #1 question on our customers and prospects' minds was, how do I market effectively on LinkedIn? So I wanted to figure out, well, how many different ways are they talking about marketing on LinkedIn? So I type it into Ubersuggest, which is suggest on steroids, and this is what it comes up with. Marketing on LinkedIn groups, marketing on LinkedIn for business, et cetera, et cetera. But it breaks this down for me, and it tells me, oh, if I'm only creating content for marketing on LinkedIn, maybe I'm missing some opportunities. But it also tells me the most important conversation based on search queries, right? Another great tool. It's called Bulk Autosuggest. And don't forget that people are searching not only the search engines, but on Amazon and YouTube and SlideShare. They're searching for questions to their problem. They're searching for content around their problem, or around what they're interested in. I'm getting ready to head over to Cannes Lions, so I'm in search mode. I'm looking for good content around Cannes Lions so I can be prepared and know what's going on over there and know what the main topics are. So I'm in mad Cannes Lions consuming mode right now, and you can be damn sure that I'm searching every one of these places. But with that being said, Bulk Auto Suggest here takes it a step further, so it breaks it down. And both of these tools are great for, again, basic keyword research, content brainstorming, and then finding phrases to target for higher rankings. Right? One of the most important things. So, but don't dismiss good old spitballing. Now, spitballing is defined as to toss around ideas with no expectations of them coming to pass, to brainstorm, right? It's kind of like fun brainstorming. Now, what I mean by this, when you get your keywords together and you know the conversation, you know what people are talking about, what they're searching on, the next step is to align this with your strategy. So you need to get in a room with your product people, with your PR people, with your SEO people, of course, and content and social. Everybody needs to get in a room, and they need to decide on what topic they need the most. And then you need to rank these, and then you're going to create big rocks around if the conversation is big enough for each one of these, right? So don't dismiss spitballing and brainstorming. This is essential. You can't just go rogue and create the piece of content that you want to create, right? You have to have cross-functional alignment. And then you have to go, reach out to your global geos as well, because I will tell you this, if you create a piece of content in your global company, if you create it in California and you put a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge on the cover, that's going to be very tough to regionalize that and take that piece of content globally. So, and the other thing is you really need to bring in this kind of, you can't go at this alone, right? Because all of these folks that I just mentioned, they are going to play a role in how successful this Big Rock launch is. Because again, we don't just launch a piece of content out there. We don't just put a piece of content on the blog and move on. We launched the Big Rock. We launched it like a product. And I'll talk about that in a second. Why wouldn't you? You have a substantial investment in this piece of content, and you want to get as much value as you possibly can. So again, some supplemental tools for your brainstorming, your keyword research, customer interviews / surveys. I forgot who said it, but somebody famously said, if you don't know what your customers want, ask them. It's that simple. Use SurveyMonkey as a free survey platform. Get into LinkedIn groups here is a great way to kind of ask some questions, cultivate a conversation. There's plenty of opportunities for you to find these conversations that are happening. And then, of course, social listening. Go into LinkedIn or Twitter and just type in these keywords and figure out what the conversation is happening where you can make an impact, right? Oh, and then, of course, don't forget about the sales team and the sales development reps, the SDRs, because these guys are fielding questions all day long. Get a top 10 request, or even your customer service agents. Get a top 10 list of the questions they frequently get asked the most, and then bring this into your strategy as well. There's no question. This is a well-rounded, holistic approach to content marketing. And then the Big Rock is scalable because you're going to pick each one of these conversations and create a Big Rock around it. The best answer. You're going to be the best answer for each one of these questions. That's how you do it. You don't throw a bunch of content at it to see what sticks. You create the best, most relevant piece based on this research, right? Oh, and then your product folks. Do not forget about your product folks and your verticals. So do you have vertical teams? Do you have a finance team, tech marketers, education verticals, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera? I guess as a content marketer, you can feel pretty overwhelmed. We're only on step one. But again, remember, let's put all this together because this is going to guide your content strategy. It's going to make you a lot of friends cross-functionally, and it's going to show that you are paying attention to every person in this company that needs your support. Very important. Oh, and then of course the geos. Don't forget about the geos. Pam Didner calls them geos. They are basically your regions, right? So your folks in APAC, your folks in EMEA, your folks in Latin America and Canada, et cetera. Always keep them in mind, and don't forget to ask them how to bring them in very early on this process. So, step 2, create the framework. Now you have all the ideas, the topics laid out, you have all the people who are involved. This is what it looks like. You have to put together a process, right? Just like a plan. If there's one thing I hate doing, it's putting together plans, right? Also PowerPoint presentations. But I learned very quickly, especially working at a startup a couple years ago, that any idea you have has to have a plan behind it. If it doesn't have a plan behind it, you are probably going to fail, but even more so, you're not going to be able to sell this up and get budget for it, right? So start with a plan, come up with the outline to the guide, which we'll talk about, and then socialize it with all the people I just mentioned. But here's the key. there's a lot of people involved here, right? A lot of people are very busy. So give them a deadline. Make sure it's a very strict deadline. And if they do not meet that deadline for feedback, then you full steam ahead, move forward. So socialize the outline that you create, which we'll talk about in a second. And then, of course, get your feedback collected. And, of course, as I mentioned before, set a deadline, right? There's going to be several rounds of feedback on this Big Rock piece of content since this is such a substantial piece. So make sure you set that deadline and make sure that nobody holds up your process and keeps you from meeting your delivery date and your goal for launch. So this is actually, when I wrote the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to LinkedIn, and I also wrote the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership on LinkedIn, which is the follow-up, two of the biggest pieces of content we have. This is what I do. I literally take a Word doc, and like I'm writing a book, because that's pretty much what this is. I basically put together an outline, and this is literally. Maybe I should have cut out some of the comments here, but I like to be transparent here, folks. I'm giving you a lift in the veil here, like the Wizard of Oz. I wouldn't say that, but we're lifting the veil to show you how this works. This is an actual screenshot of the outline for the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership, which launched earlier this year. And you can see here different chapters. I got the total page count. People recommended I keep it down below 30, and I told them it would be as long as it needed to be to get done. But we socialized this thing. By the time I get this back, it looks very different than the original idea. And that's because we got everybody's input. Everybody feels like your product team, your PR, everybody feels like they're part of this now. And it's going to be, they're going to want to share this, and they're going to want this to be successful. So that is key. Step 3, writing the Big Rock. All right, folks, so you got your keywords. You got your outline. You've socialized this. Now it's time to dig in. You've got full support. You've got budget. You got your designers lined up. I've left this slide intentionally blank. This is an open stage, right? I can't tell you how to write the Big Rock. I can tell you that you should not do it alone. I will tell you that you have to write this guide strategically, not instructionally, because if you write an instruction manual, they will throw it in the trash and they'll go to YouTube. You do not want that, right? The product sections. Now, you don't want this to be too product heavy, so bring them in, ask them to write them, and then drop it in and add it, make it conversational, right? But again, you have the outline, and you as a writer, as a marketer, you're close to this, so you should be able to knock this out pretty quickly. You're going to need an editor to go through this anyway. So, and the editor can help flush out ideas and add stats. So whenever we're creating this guide, either the Thought Leadership Guide or even the Big Rock Guide here, I had an editor basically help me pull stats and flush out ideas. Stephanie Tilton from 10 Ton Marketing, by the way, is the one that I use. I've used her for years. She's fantastic. And again, the idea here is to pull in supplemental data to support this. And then also, write this very conversationally. This is top of funnel content. You want to own a conversation around this. So you could publish this book on Amazon if you wanted to. It's a very useful piece of content, right? So again, just get your ideas out based around the outline. Get some help from product so that you're talking about the product correctly. Get some help from PR so they can take a look and make sure your voice and tone is correct. But more importantly, find a really good editor who can flush out your ideas, inject your personality a little bit into the content, and then support it with some data points and maybe some influencer topics, which we'll talk about in a second. So, step number 4. We're halfway through, 50% through. Invite the influencers, right? You're writing, this is branded content, right? So you want to have some third-party kind of outside leverage put in here, and that's where the influencers come in. So what I do is I identify my industry experts, and then I'll pull together a 5-question interview for them. And these interviews are going to be inside of the Big Rock, breaking up the chapters, right? So after each chapter, it's a great way to break it up and add some third-party validation to it, so you're not talking about yourself the whole damn time, by using these interviews from industry experts, right? So, and the way that I do it is that I have 5 questions, right, for each influencer. Very simple, very short and to the point. In fact, when we're writing these, think less text, focus more on design and graphics to kind of carry the story. So whenever we line up the interviews, I have 5 questions in mind. 3 of them are exactly the same. We're going to ask each interviewee the same 3 questions, right? And then we're going to have 2 unique questions to each one. Now, why do we ask them all the same 3 questions? Because when we're chopping this thing up, doing the turkey slices for the blog, we have 5 people with one opinion on one question that we can easily drop into a blog post, which is a beautiful piece of content linking back to the original guide, right? So the 2 unique questions keep it a unique piece for the Big Rock, and then the 5 questions kind of pulled together from each individual person make it a unique turkey slice or blog post to promote the Big Rock Guide, all driving back. And then, of course, quotes from these thought leaders, these influencers. If you can't get a quote from them, just borrow one and link back to it, right? So the 5 core interviews, or however many interviews you have for your guide, but I wouldn't go too crazy with this. But if it's somebody who maybe doesn't want to, you reach out to and they turn you down for an interview, just pull a quote from them. Ask them for a 2-sentence quote. This is really great for when your content comes out, because they'll very likely want to share this, right, based on their involvement. Of course, sound bites, if you can get some audio clips around the guide, that's always fun. And then exclusive previews. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the exclusive preview, when you create a piece of content that's this substantial, what I like to do is, and we talk about this a little bit later on, but I like to get a draft of the guide, not full, it's usually pretty much done. And then I put a big stamp across the front that says draft, do not share. And then I send it out a week early to all the influencers and press. And it's a really cool way to get a little bit of buzz and make them feel exclusive, like they're getting a sneak peek into your content. This is all going to pay off for you in the long run, I promise you. So, step 5, launching your Big Rock. And again, this is about launching a piece of content like a product, if you will. You don't want to just put something up on the blog and walk away from it. You want to get as much value as you possibly can. You've made a significant investment in this piece of content. So this is called For Those About to Launch. Fire! Let me fire the cannons. This, you got to come out all guns swinging, or all guns firing, right? Like, come out of the gate swinging. Launch this thing, you got to have everything lined up. Email, blog, in-mail, company page, sponsored updates, SlideShare, display, PPC, Twitter, everything at your disposal. This is what we use to promote every one of our Big Rocks. And I'll show you how this breaks down. The launch. And this is, what I'm going to show you here, by the way, is exactly how we do it, how I partner with our demand gen team, our social folks, the folks on my team to architect success for this, right? So we launched the blog from the mothership, which is, we launched the Big Rock from the mothership, which is your blog. This is where this content beast is going to live, right? So we have the blog post just launched a few weeks ago, brand new. And then we're going to turn on the sponsored updates. So this is going to be a combination of organic posts to our company page and then also sponsored posts, right? Sponsored updates. So why that's important is because if you're posting company page, if you're posting updates to your company page, or posting content to your company page or your showcase page, you're going to reach the people who follow you, of course, right? But if you want to break out beyond that and really get to the secondary connections and target very specifically who sees your content, that's where the sponsored updates come in. Now, you'll see here, this is the sponsored update. That's what it looks like when it shares. But again, don't be a lazy marketer. Optimize your in-share image. That little in-share image right there, that's going to be what people see in the feed. So you want to make sure that it's optimized perfectly, that there's not some random blurry picture in there. So when you're creating the launch packet, we have an agency we work with that delivers all these different pieces optimized for the sponsored updates here you see on the left. And of course the in-share, which is being shared here on LinkedIn. And then of course, we always like to be testing. On this piece of content, I wanted to make sure that Big Rock, right? There's a certain number of people who know what Big Rock content is, and for those people who weren't aware of that term, because I've been talking about it for a long time, and I think a lot of content marketers know what it is, but for the folks who aren't familiar with it, I didn't want to alienate them, and you know, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood what this piece of content was. So we flipped it, and we did some A/B testing, and we created the same graphic with a different title called, you can see right there, a step-by-step guide to marquee content, creating your Big Rock. We just flipped it, right? So those people who may not be familiar with the Big Rock concept will certainly get marquee content. At least I hope they will. So we come out of the gate swinging, and then we do the webinar announcement. This is like the rolling thunder approach, right? So we have this Big Rock, which I'm on the webinar now talking about. How crazy is that, right? And then we have a second wave of promotions coming around this. So now we have the landing page for the webinar, all based on the same content. And again, your agency or your internal design department has to create all these assets and deliver them in a bundle so you can plug and play with these things, right? And then you have another blog post announcing the webinar. And then you have another company page update, all optimized, and you can actually see the traffic there. I actually put the metrics in there for you. But where the real power comes in is when you turn on something like LinkedIn Lead Accelerator, right? So now you have sponsored updates, now you have display, now you have, now you're putting the tentacles out there. But this is what it looks like. These are all the assets that are delivered. Every piece, every little image is optimized for either display, social imagery via Twitter or LinkedIn, like a banner on the blog, a banner in your email, which we'll talk about in a second, in-mail images. Everything has to be optimized. It has to be a good experience. And again, I always say, don't be a lazy marketer. Every time you send a message out there into the social space or an email, you have one shot to connect, right? That could be a deal. That could be the intro, the first touch point into a pretty substantial deal. So make sure that every touch point is optimized perfectly and has the best experience across all three screens. This is what we plug into. This is our kind of always-on strategy. This is our marketing solutions, LinkedIn Lead Accelerator streams. And with the new product we announced earlier this year with the Bizzo integration, now you can actually nurture anonymous users. So folks who come to your website who may not leave contact info, this is how we plug and play with our content. So these are all big rock pieces of content we plug into here. So you see the original Sophisticated Guide, which we updated for 2015, the Crash Course series, you can see the Executive Playbook. These are all big rocks that we've created for this exact purpose. So now we're just going to plug in the big rock on big rocks into one of these streams. Week 1, you see we have different content set up for these folks. If they don't engage with that, we serve them something different in week 2. If they don't engage with that, we serve them something in week 3. And again, these are anonymous people who are coming to your website and not filling out forms and leaving. This could be money on the table. So these content streams, these nurture streams, are important not only for anonymous users, but for when you get them engaged, then you can serve up this big rock piece of content there as well. So a couple other touch points when you launch this piece of content. Make sure, be very proud of this piece of content, right? Your company page announcement, send an email to everyone celebrating your success, and don't forget to thank the people that helped you out along the way. Call them out at the bottom. Say special thanks to, yada, yada, yada. And of course, ask them to share. Ask them to share this. Write the tweets for them. Write the LinkedIn posts, updates. Like use the Elevate system. We have Elevate, which is our new employee advocacy tool here at LinkedIn, which is coming soon, by the way. But the idea here is to make the company announcement and then ask people to share. But make it as easy as possible for these people to share, because you want them to just be able to cut and paste and then tweak a little bit if they want to put their own voice in it, right? And then, of course, sales team. With each big rock we produce, we distill it down to an executive summary, if you will. So 3 or 4 slides of all the key points, and then we send them the slides so they can now drop these slides into their ongoing presentations, right? We also send them an ungated version of the content so they can share it with their customers and prospects. So customers, of course, we just touched on that. Partners, send this out to anyone you're a partner with. They will likely get value and want to share this with their audience, right? Not only that, hopefully around the influencer outreach, you found a couple of influencers from your partners you can put in there as well. And then influencers, as I mentioned, send this out as a preview. Put a big stamp on there as they draft and send it out early, and then when it comes back out, reach back out to them, the folks that you sent this to, and say, this is now live, we'd love it if you could share it, if you'd like to write about it, etc. But make it as easy as possible, and then, of course, your press, align it with your PR folks. So, and then just like one simple note that people forget to do all the time, add the big rock to your email signature. This is just a banner link back to the guide. Very simple to do and very effective. So here's the check sheet. And remember, every time you launch a big rock, you put on some AC/DC for those about to rock, and then change it to for those about to launch, and fire the cannons, right? But this is the checklist: blog, email, sponsored updates, Twitter, LinkedIn groups, SlideShare, influencer outreach, paid programs, and then the printed version. The printed version of these big rocks is great for events, right? So when you bring your content to an event, you have something to hand out to folks. It's also great for agency partners. It's great for sales reps to drop off with their clients. And it's easy to do. You already got the content created. You just need to format it to be printed. But step number 6. Now, this is called carving up the turkey. If you've seen me speak before, you know that this comes from Rebecca Lieb of the Altimeter Group. She told me years ago, when I asked her, I said, what do you tell these customers and brands who say they don't have enough content to fuel their social and demand gen channels? And she says, Think of your content like leftover turkey, right? So many of you know that. Slice and dice. You get this big, beautiful bird on Thanksgiving, and what are you doing for the next 30 days? You're carving this up into different turkeys, pot pie, turkey soup, turkey sandwiches, et cetera, et cetera. Think about your content the same way. Think about your Big Rock the same way. This is what it looks like. This is probably the craziest design I've ever seen in a deck. It's a turkey actually playing a drum set. So anyway, so out of this Big Rock, and again, this is a work in progress. What I'm showing you right now is a work in progress. This is the Big Rock on Big Rocks. But what we're going to do next, the next steps, are just to cut and carve this Big Rock into SlideShare presentations, into a video, into webinars, of course, which are on now, into separate blogs and infographics. We'll probably get, I think at the end of the day, let me think about this for a second. We'll probably get, out of this one Big Rock that you're like listening to right now, we'll probably get, I don't know, 25, 30 assets, and then we'll try to take it global. So there's lots of life left in this thing. We're going to stay on this thing for easily the rest of the year while we're producing other content, of course, but we're going to get the most value we possibly can out of this thing. And don't forget, these little snackable pieces of content are already created. All you have to do is lift them out. And again, they're like these little tentacles out there in the social world that if they're not ready, the Big Rock is gated, right? So if these folks aren't ready to give you their contact information, you can use LinkedIn Lead Accelerator with these snackable bits in there to draw them back, right? Or you can simply just use these pieces, these snackable pieces, to stay top of mind with them. Very easy to do. So step number 7, keeping the thunder rolling, folks. This is what it looks like. This is a Gantt chart, which took quite a bit of time to put together. I have to admit, I did not build the entire thing myself, but the fine folks at Scorch have turned this into a Gantt chart mixing board for the rock and roll theme, so I do appreciate that. But this is what it looks like. This is one piece of content. Look at this coverage we're going to get. It starts with influencer outreach, and then it goes into the Big Rock #1 launch. And then you see the Big Rock webinar, and then you see Turkey Slice 1, Turkey Slice 2, Turkey Slice 3, Slice 4, et cetera, and all along the way, sponsored updates, direct sponsored content, running to promote this all along. This is what it looks like. But look at this coverage, man. You're going to get full coverage, and it's going to get heavier and heavier as you move on through the year. This is how you promote this Big Rock, man. This is one piece of content, folks. This is your home run piece of content. I'm like going to start throwing chairs around here. I get so excited and break things in this conference room. And then step 8. Define. What do you do on step 8? You measure success. And what does that look like? Well, this is what it looks like. Now, since we're in the middle of the launch on the Big Rock on Big Rocks, I'm going to go back to the first Big Rock I ever created at LinkedIn, the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, and show you a breakdown of the success and what it looks like. So this is what it looks like. This is I've seen like demand gen models look more complicated than nuclear reactors, right? This is what it looks like at its core. You have the turkey slices non-gated at the top, all leading back to the Big Rock, which is gated for lead capture. And then it goes into, is it an MQL? No. Then it goes into a nurture track, which is what fueled by more turkey slices, of course. If it is, then of course hopefully it goes to an SDR, gets sales qualified, goes to your sales team, and then they hopefully close it and it turns into revenue. But this is the model. This is what it looks like. This is the exact Big Rock turkey slice demand gen waterfall, if you will. So, and the results out of the gate. I asked my designer for exploding pie charts, and I got exploding pie charts. Hopefully this is the first time you've ever seen exploding pie charts on a presentation before. But hey, that's rock and roll, right? So these are the results out of the gate for the first Big Rock I ever created here at LinkedIn. And what you'll see here on the right is you'll see this thing went global, man. We didn't launch this thing global on the first day, but it went global. Those numbers were going to grow, but of course 64% were in the United States, but that makes sense because that's where the big push was. But you would see those numbers start to shift 2 years in, and this content is still going out there. We're still using the same piece of content from 2 years ago. We revised it for 2015, updated it, and we still own that conversation around marketing on LinkedIn effectively. But even more important is the results I get. This is the first, I believe this is the first 30 days. Yes, the first 30 days. So, excuse me, what you see here is you see that email leads the pack with 34, oh, and this is, by the way, this is MQLs coming in. MQLs driven by this piece of content. And what you see here is email driving 34%, right? And it makes sense because email was the big launch platform, right? So, but right underneath that, you see the blog coming in at 32%. The blog, why is that? Because the blog is the mothership. It's where it launched. It's where the turkey slices were going to come out. Week after week, you're going to launch a new turkey slice, all driving back to the guide. The blog, that's social media content ROI happening right in front of your face. right? The blog is certainly not the sexiest piece of social media, but in this case, it's certainly the most important. Keep that in mind. And then right behind that, you have InMail, and then you have sponsored updates coming in, right? Now, if you look at the 60 days out, the blog takes over as the #1 MQL driver. Why is that? Because the turkey slices are still rolling. If you look at it 90 days out, sponsored updates, paying to promote your own good content, native advertising takes over. Why is that? Because you're paying to promote past your organic reach and your email reach. Now you're breaking out, now you're targeting. And there's no miss with today's targeting, especially on LinkedIn. Know your audience, you can target them specifically. You know exactly who's seeing your content, and you can measure the success of that. So this is the formula, this is what works. And one piece of content, the first Big Rock we launched, the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, delivered an astounding 18,000% return on investment using exactly the strategy I'm showing you now, with tracking everything, tracking the gated pieces of content, the MQLs that come through there. This is marketing influence, or marketing booked, sorry, marketing booked from the actual Big Rock piece of content. So incredible piece of content. And then this is another checklist for you for measuring success. So there's a lot of blogs out there that will tell you a million ways to measure content. I will tell you this is how I measure it. Right? This is how I learned how to measure it at Marketo, and I brought it over to LinkedIn, working with our demand gen team, who is spectacular. This is how we measure it. Number 1, engagement. Are people sharing your content? Are they engaged? It's only a matter of time before these social or these search engines admit that social signals play a role in rankings. But until they do, engagement, these shares are a very good sign of relevancy. But I always say, don't let your ego hijack your content marketing strategy. Right? It's not about the number of shares. It's about who's sharing them. So if you are targeting CMOs and it gets 5 shares to a CMO, it's incredibly powerful. I will take that over 1,000 practitioners when I'm targeting a CMO any day of the week. So number 2, referral traffic. But take a step further. Non-branded keyword referral traffic. What does that mean? That means that people are coming to your site without typing your brand name into the search engine. Where are they coming from then? Well, they must be coming from your own good content. There's no other way to get there, right? And then, of course, lead quality. Why are we doing this in the first place? Because we want higher quality leads faster. We want to educate these folks in their search process when they're looking for solutions to their problems. So is your lead quality going up? Are the marketing qualified leads coming into your funnel and being delivered to sales and SDRs? Are they converting quicker? Are they more qualified? Are they further down the purchase funnel? And you can measure that with your marketing automation platform. Of course, MQLs. How many MQLs is this piece of content delivering? And then pipeline. What's the pipeline delivered from this content? And then, of course, if you want to take a step further, new names into the system. And what I mean by that is sometimes a form fill is just a form fill. All leads are not created equal, right? But it is important to keep new names coming into your system, right? Because even if they aren't qualified, you can get that new name and put them into a nurture track. And hopefully, if you're targeting the right people, that this person will eventually be interested in buying your product. So, 2 years I've been at LinkedIn, and it all started with that little guy up there in the corner, the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to LinkedIn. Then I wrote the follow-up, Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership, which the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide, the original, has been the #1 MQL driver every single quarter since I started here, except for in Q4 of last year, where it was replaced by the Sophisticated Marketer's Guide to Thought Leadership, which was its follow-up. The third one I'm creating now to launch in this fall. It's kind of it's going to be sort of my Pink Floyd The Wall, if you will, maybe my Zeppelin 4, but it's going to be a very substantial piece of content that we are following this exact same process, and I cannot tell you the topic yet. But not only that, we also took this, and you can see the turkey slices, the derivatives under each piece of content. These are just a sample of the many, many, many pieces of content that came out of these. So then we took it a step further, and we took the Sophisticated Marketer's brand, which is now a brand. This is our own. We created an owned media empire, right? Like the Sophisticated Marketer's brand is like every time we put this on a piece of content, we get to that audience and they expect a certain level of quality, so we protect this brand, and now we have our own voice and we can tell our own story through this owned media empire. And so we have the three at the top, and then we took that Sophisticated Marketer brand and we verticalized it. Now we have a Sophisticated Finance Marketer. And then when we acquired Bizzo, they had so much incredible content. We took some of that content and we pulled different pieces from it and rolled it up into a spinoff called the Sophisticated Marketer's Crash Course, very B2B specific, but they're, again, doing very well. These are all built using the same formula. And then we topped it off with the launch of the Sophisticated Marketers podcast, which now we own our own radio show pretty much, which the first show had over 2,000 downloads, showed up on iTunes homepage, and was the #3 marketing podcast in the country. And again, I don't think it was so much because it was launched by LinkedIn, but it was launched by this brand, the Sophisticated Marketer, that people came to know and trust and like the content. So ask yourself, where's your big rock? And what's your plan to create your own owned media empire, right? So to kind of sum this up, another checklist for you. I like checklists. They keep me organized. But again, let's walk through these. Number one, find the right conversation to own. Create the framework. Invite your influencers. Launch your big rock. Carve up the turkey. Keep the thunder rolling, and measure success. I'm not sure why write the big rock is underneath all that stuff. I should probably fix that on the next presentation. So with that being said, I will open it up for questions. This is Welcome to the Funnel. This is my book. It is everything I know about content and social rolled up into one little thing. It's almost like a little bathroom reader, short, punchy chapters. But there's no fluff here, folks. People write books about how, people write books all the time about the why of content marketing. Well, this is the how. This is everything I know rolled up into one. It's available on Amazon, your favorite bookseller, Barnes & Noble, and we just launched it on Audible, too. So you can get the audio recording of it, because why read when you can have someone do it for you, right? Ann Handley was kind enough to write the foreword for this, so check it out. And again, if you did guess the album cover that the original Big Rock that I'm talking about today, the Big Rock on Creating Your Big Rock, was based on, I will pick a couple of tweets and send you a copy of the book. So with that being said, if you have any questions, lay them on me. And there's a few questions rolling in here. Let me take a look. I'm just going to dive in here because life holds no surprises for me, so I'm just going to jump in here and answer these questions. Oh, can you give us more info on what verticals point you just mentioned? What are verticals? Oh, sorry. So product verticals, right? So at LinkedIn, we do really well with, in the tech vertical, so tech marketers, and in the finance vertical, which is finance marketers, and then of course EDU and healthcare and beyond. So while my job is to tell the greater story of how to successfully market on LinkedIn, and I market to marketers, we have specific vertical teams that focus on finance, tech marketers, EDUs, etc., education, and healthcare, so that they can really put a bigger effort, focus on developing those verticals. So hopefully that answers your question. What was the name of your editor again? Stephanie Tilton, and she's from 10 Ton Marketing. She is fantastic. She edited my book. She edited Ardith Alby's book, which is brilliant on B2B marketing. And I believe she works with Ann Handley, and she's kind of the best in the business. So I highly recommend her. Let's see what else we got. Your cover's not from Man O' War, is it? Looks like familiar, but I can't place it. Thank you, Brian. I am a huge Man O' War fan. If you don't know that band, don't look them up because they are frightening. They're like Vikings or something, but I grew up on them. They're actually, fun fact for you, non-marketing related, Man O' War is the loudest band according to the Guinness Book of World Records. Oh, actually, Brian came back with the correct answer of what the album is based off of. So, Brian, I'll send you a copy of the book. Thanks, buddy. Here's another question from Veronica. Where does the current content come from? Is it developed in-house by content? Oh, so I think she's asking me. Oh, the current content. Here's the thing, folks. I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, oh, but you're LinkedIn. You have this huge content marketing team, right? When I started here, there was two people. There's two people that created this. Now we've hired a couple more. Alex, who's on my team, Alexander Wren. Follow her on Twitter, by the way. She shares some great stuff. Excellent writer. Better writer than I'll ever be. And then Sean Callahan out of Chicago. Those are the folks on my team. Funny enough, we're actually hiring for the team now. So if you have anybody, please send them my way. But the bottom line is, don't do this alone. We have an agency we work with called Scorch Agency. They do all the concept and creative and design for us. Nobody beats them. They are the, it sounded like I was talking about Seinfeld there for a second. Nobody beats the Wiz. But Scorch Agency, Chris Bueller is the guy there. He's fantastic. He does a lot of he does almost all of our content. Again, Stephanie Tilton's our editor. And TopRank helps us out with influencer outreach and then creating these turkey slices and keeping this thunder rolling, and then it does most of our SEO as well. So Lee Oden over at TopRank's brilliant. That's the formula. And again, it doesn't have to cost a fortune. I mean, we don't have a huge budget because we're LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. We operate almost like our own little startup here. And LinkedIn doesn't necessarily share all of our content because it's not really relevant to the entire LinkedIn audience. So we tell our own story. We built our own empire, and we're reaping the benefits now, and we're having fun along the way. Let's see what else I got here. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. What's an MQL? Marketing Qualified Lead, right? As I mentioned before, whenever you fill out this form to download a piece of our content, we have to determine whether or not you are a marketing qualified lead. Do we send you over to sales? Are you showing that peak of interest based on lead scoring, based on how much content you've consumed, based on website activity? We've put a certain score on you, and we determine whether or not you meet a certain threshold. If you meet that threshold and you're more likely to buy, then we think you're a marketing qualified lead. Or if you fit the company size we're targeting, or fit the budget that we're targeting, et cetera, et cetera. You set those parameters yourself, but remember that everybody who fills out that form is not a marketing qualified lead. It's just a name until you do the lead scoring and figure out where that person fits into your prospect. Are they a prospect based on what you're looking for and who you're targeting? Is this presentation available to reference somewhere? Yes, we will send this out. There will be a recording, and we'll send out the slides as well. And then, of course, hopefully you have the guide. You can download that as well. I sent my question before you open the Q&A, so I'm resending it. Where does it? Oh, we got that. How would you suggest a small startup to get their content to gain credibility, especially if they have no? You know, that's let's see who asked that question. This is an interesting question. I get this a lot. Reed, thanks for the question, Reed. Startups are interesting because I know you guys are strapped, and you probably don't have a content team, or if you have one content marketer, they're probably wearing several different hats. This is why this is more important, right? So there's two things I would recommend. Number one, there's a company called Pantheon, which does Drupal hosting and WordPress hosting to pretty much host your entire back end of your website. And what they did was brilliant. They took traditional, what you traditionally think of as bottom of funnel content, they took their case studies, right? And you usually use that at the very bottom of the funnel. You don't want to use the top of the funnel. But the way they did this is they took these case studies and they flipped them on their head and called them success stories, and then rolled them all together into one big rock. And I write about this all the time. It's actually in the book how they did it. But they changed it. They simply changed it to I think it was like 7 Drupal success stories or 7 successful Drupal launches. But now you've got a story, and it's all pulled together. So the last thing your prospects want to do is dig around for case studies. But if you can take case studies and make them very non-salesy and turn them into top of funnel by pulling them all together and finding a theme and then calling them success stories, that is incredibly powerful. Optimize that with some keyword research, find out which phrases to go after, then you're pretty much unstoppable and you can kill your competition. And it doesn't take a lot of effort because you have the content there. You probably just need a little bit of money for design and maybe a little bit of money for somebody to edit them together. The other thing I would say is, if you're an entrepreneur, you should certainly be blogging about your experience. Hopefully you're blogging and publishing on LinkedIn. So if you have 5 or 6 pieces of content or 5 or 6 blogs, can you find like a running theme between those and turn those into a big rock? Maybe kind of stitch them together. I think that's a really great way to do it. I mean, Hugh McLeod writes his books like that. He's my favorite author of all time. He wrote a book called Ignore Everybody, which changed the way I think about marketing, and it changed the way I think about everything, pretty much. It changed the way I think about creativity, which I think is the most important thing for a content marketer these days, is being creative to stand out. But the way he did it is he writes a blog post, which is a chapter, and then he rolls them together into a book. And don't worry about content syndication or putting too much out there content-wise. I mean, if you roll up this content into a big rock and you promote it well, and it's on topic for the conversation you want to own, then you're going to be successful. I promise you. Let's see. I think I got time for one more. How important is it to customize your content based on various channels, particularly mobile for people on the run? You know, that's a very good question. So all those assets that I showed you that we plug into, like the display ads and the landing pages and the blog images, all those things, we have a little chart that has the different dimensions that we need all of these pieces of content delivered in to promote this guide, right? And that's what I mean by, you know, not being a lazy marketer, because when you do a landing page, we have two different ones. So we have a desktop version of that image that's used to promote that piece of content, and then we have a mobile version. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to make sure that every image you have is optimized for the experience it's going to be consumed on, right? Be it a mobile, be it on a tablet, or be it on your desktop. So it's all about just having the different sizes optimized for different experiences and plugging them into your demand gen and your social channels. It's quite simple to do. It's just it's a little bit time consuming. But again, this is not about just pumping something out. This is about getting the most value out of one piece of content. Yeah, you know, and another interesting thing, I was talking to Doug Kessler about this the other day, like SlideShare, right? Even if you don't, SlideShare has an app for Android and an app for iPhone. So if you can take the content you have and turn it into a self-guided visual journey on SlideShare, it's mobile optimized and it's fun, and you can take 100 slides, even like 50 slides, and get to tell your story very quickly. It's very powerful. So I'm a big fan of SlideShare, and I think it's terribly underutilized for B2B marketers specifically, all marketers, but especially the mobile opportunities there. Let's see what else I got here. I think I got one more. Developing a book for the education space, can you share a best way to start or the plan for putting it together? Wow, that's a big question. I don't know if I can get to that. I think it's in the book. And I'm going to get to this one last one, and I'm going to have to wrap it up here, from Sabrina. And again, I have no filter on these questions, so I'm just reading them out loud. Does the content marketing model work when you don't have a tangible product and your consultancy for clients from many different industries? Of course it works, right? I mean, think about, I know plenty of marketing consultants that just write about best practices, right? I think, you look at, you know, if you want to be a successful consultant, you need authority. How do you get authority? Well, you own a conversation, you own a topic, you get link backs, you publish a book on Amazon, right? I mean, I wrote a book because I had something to say. I didn't want to make any money. I published it myself under Heavy Metal Thunder Publications, right? I just wanted to get it out there because I like to share helpful information. This is everything I've learned, and I wanted to kind of reveal the tricks of the trade. So I think if you can build trust and become an authority in whatever topic you want to talk about, tangible product or not, that's where you find success. So genuinely just being authentic, you know, getting people to trust you, getting people to like you, not click the like button, but generally like you, right? That's what content marketing does. I always look at this. There's this movie called Almost Famous, and there's a scene in there where Russell, guitar player from Stillwater, is being interviewed by the kid from Rolling Stone. And he says, "You're not going to print all this." And the reporter says to Russell, "I will quote you warmly and accurately." And Russell looks at him and says, "Just make us look cool, man," right? And that's how I think about content marketing at the top of the funnel. At the top of the funnel, don't attack me about middle and bottom of the funnel. I'm just saying that. But you know, top of funnel stuff is helpful. It's relevant. It makes your company look cool. It makes you look cool. It makes people want to be around you because you have something interesting to say. So you know, don't forget about that when you're creating this content. You have to be interesting because, again, if you put out an instruction manual, I'm going to throw it in the trash and go to YouTube. So anyway, folks, I'm out of time. I am at Jason Miller CA. If you want to connect with me, you can connect with us on Twitter at LinkedIn NKTG. And don't forget to follow my colleague Alexandra Wren and Sean Callahan for all the latest from LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. Also, subscribe to the podcast, the Sophisticated Marketers podcast. We just launched. We're in episode 5 coming up on Thursday, which Mr. Mike Volpe, the CMO of HubSpot, is on this week. How crazy is that? Because last week I interviewed John Miller from Marketo. Remember, they used to be like battling each other. But by the way, John Miller, no relation. He'll be the first to tell you that, not me. So with that being said, thanks so much for listening, folks, and we will see you next time. I look forward to your feedback. Thanks again. Bye-bye.